We talk about tactics and strategy and where the modern game is won, and frequently is won with strategy, with tactics, with study, with deep study, deep work. Brent Strom is the pitching coach for the Arizona Diamondbacks, had 8 years with the enormously successful Houston Astros. Brent, congratulations to you. It's great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks very much, guys. I enjoy the show. I watch it all the time.
Excellent, thank you. You tell us then, when Philadelphia is pounding you guys early, you go to work. What did you do? What did you see?
Well, we kind of had a reset. Dan Harrod and I spoke a little bit about what we were doing. I call it, we did it in Houston all the time during the series. When we played the Yankees, whatever, we would do about second or third game of the series, do a reboot, see what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. And we determined that we were not elevating enough, we were not pitching inside enough, we were basically laying balls out over the plate, and obviously you saw the results, severe damage, a lot of home runs, and so we had to kind of reset our sights on how we were going to go about this. You know, outside I looked at the Braves series, for example, and I watched how the Braves went about it, and never once did I see a catcher sit inside. Never once did I see Murph or D'Arnaud sit inside. Everything was middle away. And then I would watch Strider. They'd set down and away to a right-handed hitter, and Strider would early rotate. The ball would go up and in, and no damage was ever done. He blew balls right by people, up and in, even though they were unintentional. So what we try to do is take the unintentional and try and make it intentional.
How often is your initial, because clearly you thought what you're going to do in games 1 and 2 was going to work, so you had an initial scouting report. How often does that change through a series, like in real time?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have in-game adjustments. You know, you can look at scouting reports and what guys do. And so, for example, what I love about what I'm dealing when I deal with Perry Husband and effective velocity is the fact that it's real time. And so when you look at a scouting report and say a guy has a slug of 280 on sliders away, what I'm looking for is context. I want to know why that happened, what happened prior to that. I remember a story I had with Greinke, for example, and I kept banging on Greinke to throw more elevated fastballs to righties. He was struggling with righties, lefties he could control. He had that change up, down, and in to righties, and I said, Greinke, I'll bet you that your success would be better if you elevated. And he said, there's no way. I guarantee you. And of course, Greinke, being a money guy, wanted to bet on it, so we bet $100. And he said, I'll guarantee my slug my OPS is over 1,000 on elevated fastballs. And I took I said, okay, I'll take that bet. And so I did a 3-day dive on it, and I came back and I handed him $100. I said, Greinke, you're right. I said, but you're wrong in another point. The very next pitch, every time you throw an elevated fastball, the very next pitch you throw in the zone has an OPS of 300.
Oh, okay.
So I said, so whether they swing at it or not, I realize if you don't get it where it's supposed to be and they swing at it, they're doing damage. But even if you throw it above the high part of the strike zone and get a look or a move and then come back with something in the zone, it's really advantage for Greinke.
Interesting. He
still took my $100.
Right, but right, it's sophisticated. You always have to ask another question. I just want to one more. I'm going to steal one more with him. You talk about Perry Husband, effective velocity. We work with Carlos Pena, who's always seeing the game through that lens. How have you, at your age, all due respect, at your age, been able to take all the new information in the information age and utilize that so successfully?
Well, I've known Perry for over a decade and have dabbled in it and utilized it. It's initially hard concept to understand, but this man is brilliant, what he's brought to the table for me.
So give fans an example of what are we talking about?
Okay, we talk about, let's say, a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, let's say. It's very simple. You throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball inside, up a little bit, it's going to play 97. To the hitter's eyes. I don't care what the gun says. Hitters hit what they see or they don't see. It's not the gun. Now I throw 90 down below and it's 84 to the hitter. That's a huge gap in speed. So we're talking about distance and speed that make it hitting. And Warren Spahn once said it's just upsetting hitters' timing. And I've had a lot of guys that live down and away, which is fine, but you eventually pay a price if that's totally where you live, unless you have great hop to the ball and are exceptional. So we're just trying to develop. Basically, I liken it to this, and people laugh when I say this. John Stockton and Karl Malone, pick and roll. There's no defense for it. You know, what Malone would do when he feels pressure on one side would rotate one way, the other guy would rotate the other way. So there's really no set defense. The offense could dictate, whatever you do to me, I'm going to try and do the opposite. And that's the way I see effective velocity.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. Like in a nutshell, but right, it's sophisticated. Go ahead, D-Row.
So what kind of effective velocity is Zach Gallen going to have tonight? Because he pitches game 1 in the NLCS, and he wanted to establish. I've watched him all year. I don't think he gets enough credit for his heater. 95, 96 with late hop, and he kind of plays and sets it up the right way. But against a Philly lineup, it seemed like they were ready for the cookie fastball and were turning and burning. You got kind of a similar lineup here with guys that will jump on the heater. So is there an I trust my stuff and I'm going to pitch to my strengths, or am I pitching to their weaknesses?
Well, I'll give you an example with the Philly lineup. If you look at the Philly lineup, we kind of identified, and with the help from Perry to me, Baum and Turner are basically more of a flat bat type of approach.
Yeah.
But almost everybody else was a dip and lift type of approach. Schwarber, to some extent, could flat bat you and get to the high fastball. But if you look at our approach to Castellanos, or approach somewhat to Real Muto and a couple of those other guys, the elevated fastball
Works.
in would play. And then what it does is they start to feel the pressure of the speed, and they start to hurry the speed, and then all of a sudden the off speed. I remember when we played the Yankees, we had Greinke pitching for us, and we had what we call our blow-by program. And we realized that when we played the Yankees, you look at a Sanchez, for example. You throw down and away to Gary Sanchez, he'll kill you. You throw the ball up and into Sanchez, I have a side view, and this is what pitchers don't understand. If you get a side view of a hitter, and you watch Sanchez, and Greinke throws an 88-mile-an-hour fastball up and in, you watch Sanchez start to go to the ball, and he starts to buy time by leaning back because he realizes he's beat, and the ball's by him. Now, from a pitcher's viewpoint, you see the bat going through the zone, and you go, oh, you just missed that. Oh, boy, I can't do that again. But if you look at it from the side, you see the ball is back here when his bat is into the hitting zone. The same pitch down and away, safe way.
You know, Brent, you mentioned things like facing the Yankees in the postseason, making adjustments. I thought it was fascinating what you said before, that after 2 or 3 games you do a review. What do we learn? We talk about experience at this time of year for hitters and pitchers and managers. What does experience at this time of year mean for a pitching coach?
For a pitching coach?
Yeah.
Well, I'm
because you've lived in October.
I understand that. I must admit, I have had I go to a lot of outside sources. And I go to track and field, I go to a lot of sources to see if there's something, a nugget I might be able to gain. I hesitate to think about all the guys in my early part of my coaching that I maybe didn't give the best information to. And
When did that start? Kind of jumping. When did you start like outside sourcing?
well, the number one guy for me in the delivery, for example, was a guy named Paul Nyman, Paul Nyman out of Connecticut. And he was the first one that made me realize pitchers needed to move athletically. I used to teach positions. Where are you in space? And it became more important with what was happening between each point and the aggressiveness.
Yeah.
And so momentum became a huge thing. Momentum, creating an athletic approach to the pitching delivery instead of this roteness where you're up and down over here. And because I looked at Gibson and I looked at these other guys, and they said they didn't look like they were worried about their positions in space. They were getting after it. And I think he was the biggest influence for me and the rest of the pitching world, quite frankly, years ago. In fact, I was at clinic at University of Washington, and I remember going out. It was snowy. I went out in the field house in UW, and I saw this skinny dude throwing a ball from one end of the end zone to the other end of the end zone.
Lincecum?
You got it. And I'm saying, who is this dude? Who's this rubber band that is unloading and throwing the ball 350 feet? When before we were, oh God, don't do that because it's so different than the mound and everything. The body will accommodate the goal that's required. If your goal is to throw the ball 350 feet, it will do so. If your goal is to throw the ball 95, your body has to learn to throw 95 or to run fast. You got to run fast.
So you're constantly tinkering with your pitching staff.
Yeah, as new information comes, we're trying to do that. I understand momentum is a force multiplier. I watch how hitters hit, for example, and Perry has helped me a great deal with this. There are some hitters that are what we call load. They kind of hover and then go down. And then there's others that are ready to go right away. So you have to kind of look at each hitter and say, okay, what can we do that will maximize our ability to be successful?
Well, we could do an hour with you, Brent, that's for sure. What I also like is we showed a quick clip there. He's less than touchy-feely with the pitchers. Have you noticed that? Like you're kind of brusque. I mean, no, it's good, right? But you're not worried about feelings most of the time, right? No, I mean, you maybe before or after, but not during.
No, during when things happen, and I don't mind lack of execution. I mean, when they fail. Yeah. I do mind when they don't kind of follow a plan that we have agreed upon. And that's when I'll go out and I'll say, listen, dude, ball. What we got to do. Because there's a fine line between winning and losing, and I don't want to. And I pray a great deal. If I go out and say something, I go back and say a few Hail Marys and hope that it works.
I've just noticed when you go out, you just look at a guy and just like, ball.
Brian
walk.
McCann told me before we came and we were having Brent on, he said the sign of a good coach is positivity, availability, and get me out of a funk quicker than I can get myself out of. He said nobody in the business that he's ever been around could get a guy out of a funk on the mound quicker than Brent Strom.
Brent, congratulations. Again, you really transformed the pitching staff, and congratulations on the pennant.
Thanks, guys.
And getting here.
You guys have a great show. I love watching it.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Brent Strom there of the Arizona Diamondbacks, National League champions.